The International Association for Near-Death Studies presents NDE Radio, a weekly exploration of near-death experiences and similar encounters with the other side. Now, here's your host, Lee Witting.
Welcome to NDE Radio, brought to you by IANS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. I'm your host, Lee Witting. Our return guest today, Sharon Milliman, is the author of A Song in the Wind, a near-death experience. In fact, Sharon has had 3 near-death experiences. The first occurred at the age of 13 when she drowned while taking swimming lessons. And then in 2005, Sharon was struck by lightning while talking on a cordless phone. During her NDE, Sharon went to heaven and was greeted by her 2 brothers who had died as babies. She had a life review and saw and spoke with Jesus, and after her conversation with Jesus, he walked her to a wooded glen where she sat with God, and that's where we left off last week. So, Sharon, welcome back to NDE Radio.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I wanted to ask you, just looking back at that conversation, as listeners who caught last week's show have heard, or if they haven't, they can always go back into our archives and listen. Your NDE in 2005 led to a conversation with Jesus and then with God. And you saw God as a person with a soul, which was very interesting to me. But even more interesting was his question to you, what would you do if it was just me and you? And I was thinking, is that something that we should all ask ourselves? What if it was just, everything was just between God and myself, ourselves?
Well, it really is just you and God.
I mean, it seems like such a simple question and yet such a profound one. Does this come back to you? I know you've written about it and everything, but is it something that sort of stays in your mind as a resonance from your visit?
It does. It always does, because when I stop and think about it, the relationship, my whole life, everything is just me and God. Everything else is just secondary.
Right. Why do you suppose you saw God as a spirit wearing a body?
Well, he's God. He's the creator of all things. I guess he can appear as anything he chooses to. And he came to me as a person, a loving being. I mean, if he'd come to me as something scary, I wouldn't have sat down and talked to him. I would have run away. But he was trying to I don't know, get me to understand him. He wanted to have a more of a relationship with me. So he was trying to get a point across to me, I guess. And so he appeared in a fatherly way, in a very loving way, and a way that I could understand.
Yeah.
And so he appeared in a very fatherly way. And
you said he was You said he was drawing on the ground with a stick?
Yeah.
Do you remember what he was drawing?
It looked like some kind of symbols or letters or something. I didn't understand what those symbols were, but he was drawing some kind of symbols or letters. But they weren't understandable to me.
There's a story in the Bible about Jesus doing the same thing, writing on the ground. Now, another question from what we talked about last week. You saw people who knew you said, but you couldn't place them. And I was wondering, do you suppose that those people could have been from a previous lifetime? And what are your thoughts about reincarnation?
Well, I am open to that. it wasn't something that I was ever taught as I was growing up. So it wasn't until my near-death experience that that information was given to me. And it was kind of a shocking revelation, I guess. But I do believe that these were people that that I might have known before, but they were all young. But everybody in heaven is young. Everybody is like in their late 20s or early 30s. So, I mean, they could have been people that I knew before, or they could have been relatives. I don't know. I do know that I knew them and they knew me, but I honestly didn't know where I knew them from. That's all I can say.
I thought also that it was interesting that your two brothers who died as babies were fully grown and in that sort of perfect age range. And then it crossed my mind. Jesus said, we're supposed to turn and be like little children, and it's funny in a way that we aren't embodied as little children in heaven rather than as 20 to 30-year-olds.
Well, everybody seemed to be that perfect age, where everybody feels they're strongest and healthiest, but there is. I did see a place where babies go and they're attended to by angels and other members of family, and they grow spiritually, and they're taken care of. And there are tons and tons and tons of children in heaven, and they're all loved and cared for, and they do grow. And it was amazing to see my beautiful brothers, and they were just, I've told people they looked like surfer dudes. They had just spent the whole day out on the beach, and they were strong and beautiful and healthy, and my mom is in heaven now, and I know that she's with them, and it was such a beautiful family reunion, and I know that my dad would be so proud because they looked like him when he was young, and they just literally glowed. They were just so.
This is always such a comfort to people who have lost children or miscarried children. Even a miscarriage has a soul, apparently, because stories that I've heard are that these souls grow up to be just like your brothers.
Oh yeah, yes. I believe that babies are, their souls isn't the moment that they're conceived, and so yes, and they go straight to heaven, and they're loved and cared for, and the parents will see them.
Now, God, while you were talking to him, unzipped the universe for you, and you said it was too big, it was too glorious, and then you said that you were looking at the tree that he was sitting under, and in the detail of the tree, you said you saw God in all aspects. It was interesting that the huge universe was too big, but the tree was just right. It was almost like Goldilocks and the three bowls of porridge. That you could go from that one's too big to this one tells me that you are infused through everything, God.
Well, yeah, the universe was so big, and it seemed so, I don't know, way too big for me. It was, I don't know. I thought, boy, if it was just me and you and all of this, you wouldn't like me after 10 minutes. I would talk your ear off. You would be tired of me.
Now, if God is in everything, and everything has consciousness, God's consciousness in it, which is a very Buddhist concept, then really all matter, for the desk I'm sitting at right now, must have an essence of God in it as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the desk is made up of wood and molecules, and he is in all of that. So yes, I mean, he's in everything. Everything, the rocks, the wood, the water. He's in every single solitary thing that he has created. He is in everything. So yes.
And you've said God doesn't make junk. But if he makes everything, how come he's made people who are cruel? How come he's made situations that are so dismal and painful for people?
He has given people free will, and people make their choices, and sometimes people make choices out of greed and things like that, and where he will not step in and stop our free will, there are consequences for some of the choices that we make, and those consequences create some of the issues that people go through that are not so good.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm sure. A lot of the consequences, I mean, in our lives, although you see good people getting cancer and having car accidents when somebody else runs into them, and some things are just beyond our control, unless, as some have surmised, that we pre-plan our lives to some extent before we're born. Have you had any thoughts about that?
We do pre-plan some of the things in our lives, yes, and then some of the things just kind of happen, and it's how we respond to it. So I think from what I don't pretend to know the mind of God, but
right.
from what I learned was that we can become bitter by it, or we can accept it and learn from the situations in our lives, because we are here to experience, and it's through the human experience that our souls do the most growing, and that's what we're here for, is to experience and for our souls to grow. And so some of the things we have agreed to, before we come, we have agreed to experience these things. And then some of the other things, it's just through the human experience.
When you were there, you said you observed buildings that were for learning, buildings that were like libraries in heaven, and also banquet halls. And I thought, we don't really need to eat, do we? But what is that all about?
No, we don't need to eat to sustain life at all. It's like for enjoyment. I did witness a banquet hall. It was absolutely breathtaking. There were people in there, and it was like a celebration that was going on, and there was like a piano over in the corner, and this banquet hall was absolutely extravagantly decorated. There was a chandelier, and there was candelabras and flowers, and people were dressed in their finest, beautiful dresses, and men were in tuxes, and there was a butler carrying a silver tray with champagne glasses, and they were dancing and laughing, and there was a table that was absolutely absolutely just heavily laden with the beautiful linens, and it had trays of meats and cheeses and fruits, and it was just absolutely breathtaking. But what the information that I got was that you don't have to eat to sustain your life. You just eat because you enjoy it. And
so
you don't have to. If you do, you do.
So our bodies, our spiritual bodies there are like Jesus' body when he came back to see the disciples after the resurrection, and he actually ate a piece of fish, even though he could walk through walls.
Exactly.
So there's an analogy there. Now, I wanted to get on to when you come back and you talk about being in like a pink bubble, and that there are downloads of information that you receive and gifts that you received, including the seeing of auras. Could you tell us about that?
When I came back, I was in this, what I called a pink bubble, because I didn't know what else to call it. And it was this oneness with God. And everywhere I looked, I could see this. It was a beautiful pink aura. And everything radiated like I could look at the trees and I could see the life-giving aura that came around it. I could see colors that came off of people, the pinks and the golds and the yellows and the different colors that radiated around people, around animals, around plants. I could see, like I could look at someone and I could see if they were sick or if they were not happy. Their color would be sort of a gray color. If they were happy, or I've seen people who were very spiritual and their colors were white and they had sparkles around them, and golds, and then I've seen other people where their colors were very pink, or they were blue, or greens, and I've looked at plants, and there would be a gold coming off of a plant, and it was absolutely breathtaking. There was one evening I was outside, and it was just pitch black, and I saw a complete rainbow in a black sky, and I thought that was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen in my life. It was just amazing.
Well, now you've had encounters with Jesus, and I thought perhaps if you could describe the one where he healed the woman's arm, that might be the most interesting to people.
Okay. I was 15, and I was in the back of a church, and we were singing in the youth choir, and it was a Good Friday, and we were in a visiting church, and I was sitting in the downstairs part of the church, and we were waiting for our turn to go up into the main part of the church to sing. And well, I was sitting in the back, and there was two women sitting in front of me, and there were two other younger girls sitting in front of them. And when there was some stuff going on in my life at the time, and I just didn't anyway, he came in, and at first I thought, is this an apostle? When I looked at him, and I thought, wow. And then as he got closer, I looked at him again, and I knew it was Jesus. And he walked up to me, and he said, "Where do I go to sit?" And my mouth went dry. I couldn't say a word, and my eyes were just as big as saucers. And I just sat there, and I couldn't say anything. And he sat down next to me, and the two ladies that were sitting in front of me, they turned around to answer his question. And as they were talking to him, he looked at me and he said to me, "What's happening in your life is happening. You're not crazy. I love you. I am with you. Don't be afraid." And the two of them continued to tell him where to go to sit. And, when he stood up to go upstairs, he put his hand on the one lady's arm. She had arthritis so bad in her arm that she couldn't bend her arm. So he stood up, and when he did, he put his hand on her arm, and he healed her arm. And she was able to use her arm again. And then he got up, and he went upstairs. And now, when I saw him, he was absolutely breathtaking. He had long, dark, wavy hair down his back. He had beautiful brown eyes, dark olive skin. His beard was short and neatly trimmed, and he had the dimple when he smiled. And he was wearing...
So he looked the same as he did when you saw him in heaven.
Exactly the same. He was wearing a white button-down shirt, jeans, and boots. And so he fit in with the crowd. I mean, he just fit in. But he was just, the love in his eyes, he was absolutely breathtaking. And he said exactly what I needed to hear, because I was in a crossroads in my life at that particular moment, and he knew exactly what I needed to hear to fix the problem in my heart. And so when he healed the woman's arm, then he got up and he went upstairs and he sat upstairs, and then we sang, and I sang my heart out. I mean, I still remember the song. It was Up to Jerusalem. And so we sang, and then when we got done singing, everybody, and the lead singers and the guitarist and everybody, I mean, he sat right in front of us. There was no way anybody they would have had to trip over him to miss him. And when he got up and he left it, he didn't leave through the door, but he just left. And so I turned around and I said, "Did you guys see Jesus? Did you see Jesus?" And they were like, "No, we didn't see him." And I was like, "You would have had to fall over him not to see me. He sat right in front of your face." But they did not see him. It was just those 4 women and me were the only ones that saw him. And everybody else.
Did they recognize that there was something special about him?
The other 4 women did.
Yes.
Yes. And we talked about it for years after.
Okay, now to jump to the other extreme. You said you went out into your backyard one time and there was this man, long hair, good, very handsome, but almost satanic.
Yes. Yes, that was a very frightening experience. There were these weird little creepy things crawling all over the house all evening, and I had called the police 3 times that night trying for them to come out, because these things were crawling all over the house, these little minion-like things. And then the house started making this moaning sound, and there was a smell, and this went on all evening. My husband at the time was at work, and he had called a neighbor to come down and check the house out, and it was just a frightening night. And then I went outside to let the dogs out, and I opened the door, started to open the door, and I noticed there was this man standing in my yard, and how he got there, I have no idea, because we had a 6-foot privacy fence that we had put an extender on, and the gates were locked, so how he got there, I don't know. But as I started to open the door, I noticed this man standing in the backyard, and he had on a black leather jacket and black jeans and a white shirt, and it looked like there was a spotlight on him or something, like the moon was shining down on him, and he was just kind of glowing in this light. And there was no wind blowing, but his hair was moving, and he was very beautiful to look at. And I thought, well, how in the world did you get back in my yard? Who are you? And just as soon as I said that in my mind, he smiled. And as soon as he smiled, I was like, oh, my God. And I shut the door, and I said, in the name of Jesus, go away. And as soon as I said that, immediately the noise went away. He disappeared. The noise went away. The stench went away. Those little minion things went away. Everything went away. And I knew instantly at that moment that it was evil. All of that was evil, and that there was such power in the name of Jesus that was how I needed to protect myself. And
yes.
God was showing me the difference between the good spirits and the bad spirits, and that Jesus was the way to protect myself.
Right. And in the minute or so that we have left, I was hoping you could tell the audience a little about your native friend and his horse, Running Elk, who was then called Gray Eagle.
Oh, yes. God allowed him to come and teach me. He was a mentor, teacher, friend who God sent back with me for many years after my near-death experience, and he taught me many native things, and he was with me and taught me about my native traditions and native roots, and
I know you spoke about the white buffalo encounter in Pennsylvania.
Oh, yes. I went to the... Hello?
Yes, as part of that tradition, I guess that must have... Gray Eagle must have inspired a visit like that.
Yes, that was a wonderful experience when I went to the White Buffalo. It was a very wonderful experience. They kind of bowed at me, and I left offering and prayed for them, and they were very beautiful, and it was a very inspiring.
Well, Sharon, once again, we're out of time. And again, remind your audience how to get your book.
You go to Amazon.com, and it's under Sharon Milliman. It's called A Song in the Wind, A Near-Death Experience.
And I would highly recommend it. And actually, if you get it on Kindle, it's very inexpensive. So, well, I want to thank our guest, Sharon Milliman, once again for sharing her story. If you'd like to listen to this, and I would certainly suggest you're listening to our first week of interviewing Sharon, or to any of our past shows, just go to our website at nderadio.org. And for more information about the work of IANDS, the upcoming conference in Denver, check out that website, iands.org. And tune in next Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern for more NDE Radio. This is Lee Witting saying thanks for listening.